Good morning, everybody. Happy New Year, everybody.
Your time is up now.
So good to be together as we start this new year and a new study. We're going to be using a video series by John Eldredge, who wrote the book Wild at Heart for guys. This one is this video series is based on his little book Epic. And I bought a whole bunch of copies of these for you. They're only $3 each. So if you brought some along today, you can chip that in, or sometime later in the year, whatever. The study guides over there are free, so there's no extra cost for those. But basically, this book and the video series, he filmed it live in front of a studio audience. He retells the biblical story in a creative way, in a one-man, one-hour drama. So I had planned this morning on showing you an abridged version. It's about 38 minutes to kind of give you the whole sweep of the whole thing. But I got it all set up last night and found that the DVD that I had a scratch on it, and so it would not play that 38-minute version. So instead, what we're going to do is it's designed to be 6 weeks, where you start with the little prologue, and then there's 4 acts, Act 1, 2, 3, and 4, in the biblical story, and then there's let's say prologue, and then an epilogue at the end. So we're going to be basically walking through the book, so you can read ahead in the book if you like, but also after each segment John gives a little commentary in this curriculum version. So we're going to be watching it the same way that folks at home who aren't able to be here can watch it. We post this on our YouTube page under studies or videos, and where you can find this, or for those of you who are watching at home, you just go to wildatheart.org, and you guys can do this too if you want to rewatch something, if you ever miss one. Wildatheart.org looks like this, and then you just click on this little search bar and type in Epic. And then it comes right up to Epic Live, and you click on that, and then it takes you down, shows you the 6 different sessions: prologue, act 1, 2, 3, 4, and epilogue. So today we're going to watch the prologue. One of the things that he does is he points out how all of our favorite movies and stories tie into, or they follow a similar narrative arc to the greatest story of all. What are some of your favorite movies, or favorite books that you've read? Any particular ones that really stand out? A story that's really captured your...
Are you talking about any, or?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, any movies. What's that?
Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings,
Harry
yeah.
Potter.
What's that?
Potter.
Harry Potter. Mm-hmm.
Wizard of Oz.
Wizard of Oz. Yeah.
Dances with Wolves.
Dances with Wolves. Ain't seen that in a long time. It's a great one.
Much Ado About Nothing.
Uh-huh. Shakespeare. So, yeah, I'm with you on Lord of the Rings. It's one of my favorites. And that's actually what he starts off with in his prologue here, sharing a little bit of that story, and then pointing out how all of the stories that we love tend to have a similar arc to them. That things are good, and then all of a sudden everything gets messed up, and it gets worse and worse until finally a hero comes along and saves the day by doing some great deed or by making some great sacrifice, and then peace is restored. And the reason that storyline gets retold in just about every major story that we listen to is that that's the story that we're in. And that's the story of God at work in the world. That He created everything good, and then our sin led to chaos and destruction, and so He sent Jesus to set things right, and one day peace will be completely restored. So let's take a look at this first prologue, where he introduces all these things. Will somebody turn off the lights there? There we go. For those of you at home, I'm going to pause this because you'll be able to see it better on your own screen. If you came in a little bit late, you can make sure to pick up one of the study guides that we have over there, and the book, Epic, the story God is telling. These books are just $3 each, so you can bring that in sometime. Doesn't have to be today. You know, we're going to be doing this for 6 weeks as we walk through this 1-hour presentation that he's done, along with the broken up into these 6 different parts with his little commentaries at the end of each one. And again, you can find that whole series on wildatheart.org. Just hit the little search button and type in Epic, and it'll take you right to it. So, briefly, what did watching that stir in you? A little excitement, intrigue, a new thought or question?
For me, it was exciting. I mean, even just to think about how each day is, you know, a chapter or part of a chapter of your book. It's just so easy to get into the mode of like, okay, tomorrow's Monday, and this week is, here's the things I have to do, and kind of just like, just a list of things that happen, but instead thinking about it like, I wonder what might happen, what characters are going to come in and out of the story. Kind of makes it a little more magical than the mundane of everyday life.
Right. Yeah.
Life changes from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
All the ups and downs in your life.
Absolutely. Yeah, just like watching a movie, and there's these highs, and then there's these lows, and then there's conflict, and then there's resolution. That's what our lives are like. Yeah. What else kind of did this make you think about?
I think about not judging people or situations before you hear.
Mm-hmm.
Hear makes a big difference.
Absolutely. So like what you shared about, you know, you show up at home and your car is all wrecked. What's going on? Oh, it wasn't her fault. Oh, I'm just so glad that she's okay. You know.
Or why is that person like that?
Exactly. What, you know, some person, you know, lashes out at you in the line at the grocery store. You don't know what they've been through that day or the past 10 years that has led to that moment of because we've all been there. What else? Yeah.
Well, I decided to accept that challenge of reading the Bible.
Great.
It is a challenge to find the time, but
Absolutely.
anyway, I find that reading it, I've read it or heard it 1,000 times, but it does carry on through the day. You think it comes to mind, but it puts you into that story of starting with Adam and going on through Abraham and all. So I like that. But it does remind you that you're in God's story.
Exactly. And that's actually why I chose this particular adult class to do, because it shows us how our lives are connected to that grand story of Scripture. And so when you're on the adventure of reading the whole thing, that gives you greater insight into how you're part of the story. John said, story is the language of the heart. Is that true for you? Does that resonate with you in some way?
Yeah, cause I naturally get really hooked to books or movies, you know.
Yeah, it draws you in.
Mm-hmm.
You're kind of swept along.
Yep.
Story is the language of the heart because it helps us to see things differently. How does understanding story affect your faith? What do you think about that?
Well, maybe it makes you to think ahead and think back, not just, now I can't take this, what am I gonna do? But
right.
You end up thinking forward, what happens if I do this, or why am I doing this? Because of something in the past. Could be.
Yep.
Your faith has pulled you through these trials and tribulations.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No matter what you're going through, you can have hope because you know where the story is headed. I've had so many people tell me when somebody that they know and love is going through a real tragic or difficult time in their life where they're grieving, they'll say to me, I don't know how people can deal with life or mourn for somebody if they don't have Jesus. If they don't know where the story is going, and that there's purpose to all of this.
I think a long-term illness.
Mm-hmm.
Is a bad deal.
Yeah.
Where am I going? Where am I headed?
Right.
Or a loved one with it that you've dealt with.
Yeah. That sometimes, even though those times are really hard and difficult, they can actually drive you deeper in your faith. Creating more reliance on the Lord.
Hearing other people's stories, whether it's through the Bible or just talking with people, helps us know that we're not alone in our own story. And
isn't that huge?
It's really powerful.
Yeah, because it's so easy, especially when we're going through pain. Pain tends to make us all inward focused, and all we can think about and all we can see is the pain. But when we know that we're not alone, when somebody comes alongside us, or when we have an understanding of this is common to everybody, and even Jesus went through this himself. That's the real power, I think, of the whole gospel story, is that God doesn't just throw stuff at us and stand back and laugh. He walks right with us. He came right into our world. He became one of us and suffered all the things that we suffer. Had the heartache and the pain and the grief, as little as getting a splinter when he was working on a chair, to the pain of feeling torn apart from his Father as he hung on the cross. He's been there. He's with us. And he has a greater future in store for us. If our lives are a story, what has this last chapter of your life felt like for you? Does it feel like a comedy, a drama, a tragedy, a soap opera? Comedy? A farce. All right.
A little bit of everything.
Yeah, depending on the day. Sometimes, life feels just happy and you can laugh at stuff, and sometimes it's like you're sucked into the drama, like a soap opera. There's all kinds of different things that we go through, and that's okay. That's normal, because life is a story. So, he asked that question, what kind of tale have you fallen into? What kind of tale have you hoped to, dreamed of, or are living in? Because if you want to understand your own life, you have to understand your story. The things that have happened in the past have shaped you into the person that you are now. The reason that you have a fear of heights, or the reason that you move away from intimacy, or all of those things are shaped by what's happened to you. So over the next few weeks together, I'm going to ask you to write out your story. Maybe you've done that. Maybe you have kind of a little journal or something that you've had over the years. But even just to think through the different chapters, the major chapters of your life, and what that's been like for you, it's huge. But it'll give you a greater understanding of yourself, God's hand in your life, the enemy's assault on you, and your role in God's larger story. So start writing it out, or talk to somebody, tell it to someone. And think about, how would you tell your story? What would you say and include? What's shaped you? What's made you who you are today? So all the way through this prologue, the idea is simply that life is a story, because it's the nature of the world that we live in. And that's the really interesting thing about the Bible, is it's primarily written as stories. What Jesus teaches, his parables are stories that kind of work on us. they like get inside our heads and start making us see things differently. The Gospels themselves are stories about Jesus, which apparently is the best way to get to know him. So, as John said, by using the concept of story, John is not saying that Christianity is untrue, like it's just a story. Some people try to reduce Christianity to just one of the world's great myths or legends. But that's not what John means. Story doesn't mean untruth. It means a narrative account of unfolding events, drama. An epic means a dramatic story on a grand scale. So, the greatest biblical truths can't be just communicated by propositions, by doctrinal statements. They can, in a lot of places in Scripture they are, but historically speaking, the church has only recently kind of started using propositions, doctrinal statements, as their primary means of communicating the truth. Because statements are important, but ultimately inadequate. The Bible reads far more like a great story than it does an encyclopedia or the Yellow Pages. So the bottom line is that God has created a reality for us as his people to live in. And that reality unfolds like a great story. And quite often when God chooses to communicate with us, he does so through a story. All the stories of the Old and the New Testaments. The best way to understand the world that we live in is to see it through that lens of a story. So next week we're going to start the Act 1 where God began, in the beginning. And even before God created the heavens and the earth, the very beginning, John 1 says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. That's where the story starts.